Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my amazing interviews. Now, you may know that over the last few shows, I've been talking about the legal system, the legalese, the way that the courts, the acts and the statutes, the government, they all try to sort of get jurisdiction and capture you and put you into the system under the legal fiction, that capitalized name of you. And now some of this may be a bit baffling, some of this may be something you already know. So I thought it would be nice to bring my friend Stuart on, who has been in this situation for a long time, tested the system, got himself out of the system, and many people have said, "Well, Richard, you know, show me somebody who's done it." So that's what I'm doing. So welcome to the show, Stuart. Hello, Stuart.
Hello, Richard. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you on the show, and thank you very much for coming on. So I thought what we should do, there's a lot of, this is quite a complicated thing. It's simple when you've got the grips of it, like riding a bike, but at the beginning, or driving a car, there's so many things to think about, isn't there? And I thought we should start really, because you've been very much my mentor on this, helping me understand it behind the scenes. Maybe we should just talk about the system itself and the fact that in an ideal world, we want to be in the private rather than what they call the public. Could you help me out with that?
Hopefully, yes. So basically, you have to separate the legal system from the lawful system.
Right.
So, in other words, we have a private system that you should always be in, and you've also got a public system which uses legal fiction.
Yes.
Which you touched on quite greatly. So hopefully the viewers will understand a little bit about legal fictions. That they are this not you, it's just an interpretation of you. It's a corporate you. Just as if you would have a company and you would set up a company that isn't you. You could be a director of it, but it isn't you. It's this inert object that needs somebody to speak for it to be able to to converse with the world, the commerce.
Yeah. So I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I associated it to, like, if you're looking after the estate of your, you're the executor of an estate. The estate is no longer there. It's just this name, and you're dealing with it's kind of, as you say, a company, but it has this name that in your case is the same name that your parents gave you, but it isn't actually you.
Yes. If you think about it as they made a company out of you. Yeah, out of the birth certificate, which is basically where I'd like to start with it, to give a little bit more of an understanding how your birth, then everything happened from that point. So I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown of how I view it.
Okay. People have said, "Well, Richard, you know, show me somebody who's done it." So that's what I'm doing. So welcome to the show, Stuart. Hello, Stuart.
So a company that isn't you. You could be a director of it, but it isn't a system that you should always be in, and you've also got a public system which uses legal fictions.
Yes.
Public system, which you've touched on quite greatly. So hopefully the viewers will understand a little bit about legal fictions. That they are this not you. It's just an interpretation of you. It's a corporate you. Just as if you would have a company and you would set up a company that isn't you. You could be a director of it, but it isn't you. It's this inert object that needs somebody to speak for it to be able to to converse with the world, the commerce.
Yeah.
So
I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I associated it to, like, if you're looking after the estate of your, you're the executor of an estate. The estate is no longer there. It's just this name, and you're dealing with it's kind of, as you say, a company, but it has this name that in your case is the same name that your parents gave you, but it isn't actually you.
Yes. If you think about it as they made a company out of you. Yeah, out of the birth certificate, which is basically where I'd like to start with it, to give a little bit more of an understanding how your birth, then everything happened from that point. So I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown of how I view it.
Okay.
So basically, when you were born, your mother and father, either one of those, registered you. Now, when you register something, what's very important and fundamental to understand is anything you register, you give the title away. So what is title? Title is the fact that you give the object away, be it a car, be it anything that you do, marriage, your child, your anything like that. Once you register something, people have to understand fundamentally the giving title away. So you then only have the use of that object, or in the case of your child, they call you a parent, which is parent. It's a legal connotation that basically gets you into believing these legalese parent when you're the mother and father. So if you like to think of it as private and public, there's a good little bit of a synergy where the private is the mother and father and the public is parents.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So yeah, and so we're kind of getting into the language of the two universes, if you like. You've got the private universe, which you're dealing with men and women, living men and women, and the public, which is this corporation, as you said, the way that companies use your capitalized name, the legal fiction, to interact with you, if you so wish to interact with it.
Yes.
And the word, and the parent word, the parent word is a legalese term, because really they're your mother and father.
Correct.
And I suppose we should just say that there's a lot of this where words appear to be the words that we use every day. And I use the example about a car in the private is a conveyance because it conveys you, but in the corporate world or in the legal world, in the public, it's a vehicle or a car. And it's very difficult to separate, if you don't know, it's difficult to separate those two things, but you're talking different languages, aren't you?
Yes, and hopefully this informal chat today is just to advise and just to make people have a better understanding that we've been dumbed down by the system, by schooling, that nobody has had any education on law, or what I call the legal system, which is pseudo-law.
Yes,
and it appears law, but it isn't. It's a system. Yeah. And I think, that just to have the two sides, legal and lawful, if you ask the normal man in the street or lady in the street, and you said to them, what's the difference? A lot of people wouldn't be able to differentiate between the two. So what we're going to try to do today is separate the private from the public, from the legal system.
Yeah. And the
aim is, go on.
So, sorry, I was just going to say that in and of itself, the private and the public is a confusing term, because the public in and of itself is a confusing thing, isn't it? Because you think of it as being public and open to the public and for the public, but in a way it's its own little private domain, isn't it?
It is. And the system confuses you to not understand what is actually what's going on, so that you believe that you are a legal fiction as well as a living man. So you're in the private and the public. And the whole point of the system is to get you into that legal system at a young age. Well, they do that through the birth certificate, as I've said. So what I think it'll stop very soon. It's just a watcher. So basically, what happens is when your mother and father register their baby, they do so under a guise that they are, and they don't understand what they're really doing, because they're the informants on the birth certificate, which you've rightly stated. When really, if they understood what is really going on, they would cross out the word informant, put the word executor, and therefore they would be the executor of the child. Now, there's nothing to stop anybody doing that. It's just people are educated to understand what is actually happening there. Now, in and of itself, the birth certificate is just a record of live birth, but it has a CUSIC number, which is the 9 red digit numbers on the bottom right-hand side. Look at it. Basically, what that does is it provides the document with a identifier of that document, so that what they do with that, be it a day later, a week later, a month later, and I would suggest it would be nearer the month. What happens then is they then bond that document, and you are basically collateral for the national debt. And it's a good business. I'm an ex-businessman, so you know I look at this from a business perspective. It makes sense. You don't need the permission of anybody to set up a trust. That's why trusts are set up in Bermuda, in Jersey, and the British government for years have gone along with all this dodgy money, and they've allowed all these trusts to be set up. Cayman Islands is another, and all these trusts have been set up, and over time they've had to clamp down a bit, but the ones that are set up are still operating, and the government turned a blind eye to it. So the government are actually very versed in these trusts, in creating and constructive trusts.
Dikke Dirk, ik weet nu al genoeg. Dus jullie mensen weten wat het is. Zodra je geboren wordt, wordt er gewoon een fucking lening op je genomen. Je eigendom van de staat, tenzij je anders informeert. We gaan het hier verder over hebben. Soevereiniteit. Daarom krijg ik nu al geen kijkers. De groeten, tot.